So I've been getting back into Minecraft for the first time since the 1.14 update, and a lot has changed since then. And in doing so, I decided I might as well make a video for everyone else who wants to know all the major updates that has been released about the game. Except we're not going to start at just update 1.14. We're going to start all the way back at Minecraft 1.0. For those of you unaware about literally the best-selling video game of all time, next to Tetris, I might add, Minecraft is a sandbox game where you can pretty much do anything and explore endless amounts of procedurally generated worlds. Minecraft has been receiving updates ever since 2011, so over a decade at this point, and it's been receiving another update about every half a year. Every update is labeled 1 point and then the number, with the higher the number, the more recent the update has been. With that in mind, I want to go through all 20 major updates to the game as of making this video, and going through all the significant additions and changes made to the game as we go along. Starting with, of course, Minecraft 1.0, the first official version of the game. This is the OG Minecraft, and by this point, even though it had just officially come out, the game had been gaining traction from just the beta builds. It came out as of November of 2011, and it has had a lot of new additions that are pretty standard nowadays. So, future me here, butting in to tell you that, I couldn't manage to get Minecraft 1.7 and below to work. Instead, it managed to look like this jumbled mess you see on screen. So, for the first 7 updates, I will be grabbing footage from other people and crediting them in the bottom left. I wish I could get my own footage, but if this is the way it has to be, this is the way it has to be. Alright, let's continue with your regularly scheduled video. Some of the most significant things to be added in this new update were the new end dimension, which is now the end of the game, and the challenge that makes players not just a Minecrafter, but a Mine Master. There could now be an Ender Dragon to fight for that glory, and an egg after defeating the dragon. And the end dimension was full of Endstone and Endermen that you could now get by making Eyes of Ender, which of course could be crafted with the new mob Blazes. Villages were also added in this update, making you not completely alone in this world, as well as mushrooms, which the existence of which is just incredible. Another huge addition was brewing stands and potions. These are now considered essential for fighting any boss in the game, and while there were still more potions to come, 28 different potions were still pretty good. With the same introduction, splash potions were added in case you wanted to give your friend a quick effect, which is interesting because I always assumed splash potions came later. But nope, they were in the 1.0 release. The last major change was, of course, enchantments, which came with it the enchantment table, another essential part to defeating bosses. Another small change was the addition of hardcore mode, so now you could play until you died just once, in which case you'd be locked out of that world forever. Oh, and breeding. There were lots of small changes to the game, like texture changes, sound changes, and milk now being useful for taking away potion effects instead of just for cake. The last change I'll mention is the fact that now Endermen have their own sound instead of a zombie sound, which I think is funny now hearing the Enderman growl instead of a terrifying shriek. The next major update was version 1.1, which was released January of 2012 and didn't present much in additions to the game, but it's still considered a major update. Spawn eggs were introduced as a creative exclusive item to be able to spawn any mob in the game immediately. And because I haven't explained it, and maybe you don't know, there are 2 modes to the game you need to know about, creative and survival. Survival, you have hearts and can get hurt and die, and you generally have to work for anything. It's the life simulation part of the game. Creative, you can immediately have all the blocks at your disposal, and you don't have to worry about dying or even enemies attacking you, because they just won't attack you in creative. It's there if you're more into the creating aspect of Minecraft and don't want to have to worry about anything else. Anyway, with that explanation out of the way, we'll move on to the only other two major changes to the game, which were 56 added languages, which probably wasn't that hard to do because the only translation would be for the option menu. It's not like it's a really language-heavy game. And the addition of super flat, which is, just what it sounds like, a world that is super flat. Some small changes to the game include leaves now having a 0.5% chance of dropping an apple, and being able to enchant bows. Void behavior was changed, and slightly more advanced mob behavior, and brewing a potion now took 20 seconds as opposed to 30 seconds. Again, not too much happened, but I feel inclined to include it because it's got the next highest number in the update log. Now moving on to Update 1.2 in March of 2012, which some significant things were added. The entire jungle biome was added to Minecraft, and this was the major addition. With that came a new wood variant and an ocelot, so now you could have both dog and cat in your world. Another big addition was iron golems, which could be spawned manually by 4 iron blocks and a pumpkin, but also spawn naturally in villages with villagers. These guys do a lot of damage to any nearby hostile mobs. There was also another underground structure added, mine shafts, which is at least something to see while mining in survival that's not just stone. Zombies can now break down your wooden doors, so hooray! But to balance that out, I guess, they have a chance of dropping iron ingots. And skeletons have a chance of dropping a bow. That's pretty much it for the important to note changes. Still not a big update, but still more than 1.1 had to offer. The next major update came only 5 months later in August of 2012. 1.3. This one's got a lot more new stuff compared to the last two. Emerald ore is now in the game, which is almost as rare as diamonds. But this ore presented with it the ability to trade with villagers, which, future me, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the trades in these early versions weren't very good. But it's still an exciting feature, as nothing like it had been added until then. Ender chests were added, in which contents were transported to another ender chest no matter how far away, which is useful to be sure. They added tripwire hooks, something for redstone devices, which is basically this game's version of electricity if you're unaware. They added different wood varieties for each wood craftable, which allowed for some more creativity. Books and quills were added, which were books you could actually write in. And enchanted golden apples were added as well, which gave you some status effects for a brief period, as well as giving you some hunger points. Jungle and desert temples were added, which can have some good items in chests. And lastly, an entire extra game mode was added. See, I didn't talk about them earlier for nothing. Called Adventure Mode, which is similar to Survival Mode, but you can't place or break any blocks, and you don't have to worry about hunger. You did, however, have to worry about dying. I'm pretty sure this was added so that strangers could play other people's worlds without the original person having to worry about the stranger messing anything up. There are a couple significant changes, including a lot of texture changes. Cauldrons will be filled up by rain. Endermen will attack you if you look at them now, which is just iconic at this point. Boats won't break like a toothpick anymore. More enchantment options for just one go, and some other small glitches. The chance to get more than one enchantment at a time is certainly a useful one, and I'm really glad they added that. Makes things easier. But yeah, that was 1.3, our biggest update yet. The next update was released as of October 2012, 1.4, and this one is going to be our new biggest update. And from now on, each major update comes with its own little tagline that sort of sums up what's being added in the game. 1.4's tagline is, "The Pretty Scary Update." Command blocks were added to the game, which are an ultimate and powerful tool in creative that allows all sorts of crazy contraptions you see professionals make. They get more advanced in time, but still, this was an amazing advancement in the Minecraft community. Beacons were also added as an in-game block, which gave small buffs if you were in the range, and Anvils were added as a way to either rename some items or repair it if it got too damaged. Flower pots to put flowers in, mob heads to deter other players from entering your base, and potatoes and carrots to increase your farm variety were all added. Potions of night vision and invisibility were added, rounding the amount of potions you could create to an even 30. Now, for the namesake of the update comes 4 mobs that really shake up the game. Bats were added, which mark the first flying animal in Minecraft, not including the Ender Dragon. They aren't too significant as they don't drop any items, nor can they even hurt you, but still a fun addition. Witches were added and can throw potions at you to harm you, and they're immune to potion effects itself. It has a chance of dropping valuable brewing items too. Definitely a cool addition. Now, wither skeletons were black skeletons that spawned in the nether that inflicted the wither effect, which is like poison but even more deadly. They had a chance of dropping wither skulls, which are used to make the last added mob and the second boss to the game, the Wither. This bad boy is about as tough as the Ender Dragon, but even more damaging, and if you somehow manage to take down this behemoth, you'll get a nether star, which is how you create beacons in survival mode. Besides those big additions, there's also item frames and some new sounds added. Really, the only big changes to the game were that zombies and skeletons could now sometimes wear armor, and a bunch of bug fixes. This update was more about the addition of an entirely new boss than anything else, and I don't think there's been a new boss added since, which makes this update pretty special. Next update was 1.5, released on March 2013. Nicknamed the Redstone Update. The additions, as the name implies, are a bunch of stuff that works with redstone. I'm just going to list them off and go into detail only if I feel necessary because there's a lot of redstone compatible stuff. Activator rails, blocks of redstone, daylight sensors, which emits a redstone signal only if sunlight touches it, droppers, hoppers, which will automatically funnel any item dropped on them into chests or furnaces below them, redstone comparators, which I still don't really know how they work even after looking it up, trap chests, and weighted pressure plates. That was just the redstone related stuff too. There's even more after that. Mainly quartz ore, which was the first ore added to the nether, meaning the nether had more use than just getting blaze rods or wither skeleton heads. This came with it all the variants of quartz you can have, like stairs and slabs, and the only other notable thing was Minecraft Realms was in its early stages, which is more or less just a way to have your server for a wider range of people. I'm simplifying here, obviously. The beacon's range was increased for the status buffs, as well as a bunch of other small things for redstone that are too nuanced for me, but probably helped immensely for the aforementioned crazy contraptions in Minecraft. It also made bone meal not as effective, and skeletons are now better at their job of killing at you. Just killing you, I guess. There's a bunch of small quality of life changes that are too small to talk about in this more broad recap of updates. But with that, moving on. Our next update is that of 1.6, nicknamed the Horse Update, and released in July of 2013. Since it was called the Horse Update, you can expect most of the additions were related to horses. And yes indeed, the major addition was the new horse mob, and the ability to tame and ride him. And with that came the hay bale, horse armor, which is to be noted that you could not craft and had to find in chests with generated structures, leads, and name tags. Also, new horse-like mobs were added too, like donkeys and mules, which both can have an extra 15 slots of inventory on them, and skeleton and zombie horses, though apparently the last two can't be spawned normally yet. Also, fun note, you can only get mules by breeding a donkey and a horse together, discounting spawn eggs, of course. And true to real life, mules cannot breed with any other mob. I don't think there's any functional difference between the mule and the donkey, but it's a fun detail nonetheless. Also important to note that hardened clay was added. It's an interesting note that saddles weren't actually added in this update, as they were added before to be able to ride pigs. They were just changed to also be able to be used on horses. Another notable change is that spiders now have a chance to spawn with an effect, which is kind of scary, and I didn't even realize that was a thing. And the last notable change is that it now took hunger points to be able to regenerate health, and bug fixes, obviously. Update 1.7 has a fun name. The update that changed the world. It's kind of dramatic, isn't it? It was released on October of 2013. The reason it's named this way is, as you might have guessed, because it added a bunch to the landscape of Minecraft. It added new wood varieties, dark oak and acacia. Entire new biomes were added, including the mesa, the savanna, roofed forest, birch forest, flower forest, taigas, and the deep ocean, which is just a deeper ocean. New blocks were also added, namely coarse dirt and podzol, which won't let grass grow on them, if you wanted that for some reason. A bunch of new flowers were added, aside from just the dandelions and roses, like tulips, blue orchids, alliums, I don't know, azure bluets, oxydaisies, sunflowers, peonies, rose bushes, lilacs. Oh, and that's it. Yeah, it's just and lilacs. Roses were renamed poppies in this edition, too. 3 fish were added, the pufferfish, salmon, and clownfish, with the pufferfish giving you all sorts of nasty effects if eaten, but are also used to make water-breathing potions, which were also added in this update, by the way. Some other miscellaneous additions were some achievement modifications, packed ice, and stained glass. But the last new addition I want to focus on was the amplified world type, which turned all the biomes up to 11. I mean, look at these biomes. They are insane, but certainly fun to look at. Significant changes include maps on item frames extending to the entire block, written books being able to be duplicated in survival, creepers can now be ignited with flint and steel, which, just why? Zombies now only have a 10% chance of being able to break down a door, fishing can now provide you with junk, and Minecraft Realms was getting off its feet, finally. This next update is the longest to produce so far, taking 11 months to make and releasing in September of 2014. Update 1.8 was called the Bountiful Update. There is a ton added in this update, including some new stone variants like diorite and andesite, granite, and their polished versions. Oceans now have a new depth to them, with ocean monuments now being able to spawn, which honestly really only contain 8 gold blocks and sponges, and considering gold is the lowest durability for tools in the game, it's Sponges, however, have one purpose, and that's getting rid of a lot of water a lot faster than a normal bucket can, making it a wet sponge. And you can even shove it in a furnace to make it a dry sponge again, which is funny. Also, an entirely new mob was added, the Guardian, which, as the name suggests, guarded the ocean monuments and their sponges, I guess. Slime blocks were added so you can finally have a bouncy house in Minecraft. Banners were also added so you can decorate a bit more, I guess. And same goes with armor stands, also added for decorations. Or a scarecrow. No, I'll just add a sound effect. Don't put that in there. Fences now have different wood varieties. Oh, and speaking of mobs from earlier, rabbits are now in the game, which are honestly just another way for food and survival. Oh, and some sweet rabbit stew. Also, endermites were added, which have a small chance of spawning after using an ender pearl, so that's annoying. And the final major addition, aside from tons of commands being added, is the last game mode added to the game, as of this video. Spectator mode. It's like creative mode and adventure mode combined, where you can't die or get hurt, but you also can't interact with anything like an adventure mode. You are literally like a ghost, as you can fly through and go through any block. I wasn't kidding when I said you couldn't interact with anything. Also, a fun feature I didn't realize was a thing until researching this video, but in spectator mode, you can look through the eyes of other mobs to see what they see. Some even have special ways of seeing things, like the spider, or the enderman, or even... Oh no. Oh no! There were a lot of changes, but not too many significant ones that I feel the need to call out here. Let's see. You can now invert a daytime sensor to make it a nighttime sensor. Written books that were copied now say so. Villagers now have professions, more or less. and they can turn into witches if struck by lightning. Tame dogs and ocelots will now have a death message if they die and are named. Oh, and enchanting now only requires 1 to 3 levels as opposed to 1 to 30 levels, as well as needing lapis lazuli, giving that ore another use aside from just die. And wow, that was our longest update yet. And they pretty much only get longer from here, so strap in. Minecraft 1.9. This had the longest development of any update in the game, taking nearly a full year and a half to develop, as it released in February of 2016. There wasn't even a major update in 2015. This could also be due to the fact that in between these two updates, Mojang had been bought by Microsoft, so maybe the acquisition may have taken up some of their time. But anyway, this update was nicknamed the Combat Update. Sit tight, because there were a lot of additions, and I don't really have time to go through them all. First, let's go through the additions that are the namesake of the update. The combat. First and foremost, they added a timed attack system, meaning you can't spam attacks anymore. They added an offhand, so now you can dual wield, which is a really cool addition. But we don't have time to delve into it, or anything else for that matter. Anyway, with that offhand, you can put a shield, which blocks attacks. Arrows can now be imbued with potions, giving them an extra oomph while fighting. Potions can now be made into lingering potions, which are like splash potions, except, get this, they linger. And there is one other major addition, but to explain this item, I have to first talk about the other major addition, the End Cities. Now, after defeating the Ender Dragon, you have the option of going to these End Cities, which house a lot of new stuff. Again, let's just speed through this. In these End Cities, you can find chorus plants, which grow chorus fruit, end rods, end stone bricks, purpur blocks, and their variants, the new mobs shulkers, which will make you levitate, and while not found in the cities, these next two are related to the end, dragon breath and end crystals. The final thing you can find in the cities are the last major combat-related thing, the elytra, or elytra? I don't really know how to pronounce it. You can roast me in the comments. These bad boys are wings that you can use to fly. Well, just glide, for now. This is a huge addition and something loved by many fans. There are a few other smaller changes, at least in comparison, notably igloos spawning in the overworld and beetroot now being able to be farmed. Also, there's a void option, which, is a void, believe it or not. Cauldrons can now fill water buckets. Command blocks now have repeat and change variations. Hay bales now reduce fall damage by 80% if landed on. Boats now have different wood variants. Tame dogs and ocelots will now have death messages even if they aren't named. The Ender Dragon can now be spawned again. Yes, even though there was an egg, there hasn't been a use for it. And a couple of sound changes. Like with 1.8, there were a lot of more changes, but for brevity, we'll leave it at that. The next update came a mere 4 months after the last, in June of 2016. It's a much smaller update compared to the last two, and all the updates up to this point, honestly. 1.10, nicknamed the Frostburn Update. Is what's coming up, I guess. I don't know. Again, let's start with the namesake of the update. All the additions relating to the hot and the cold. The magma block was added, which spawned in the nether and made you take damage while touching it, similar to a cactus. Polar bears were added, which, sure, why not? And they're normally passive unless you're around their cub, in which case they're tough to deal with. Strays and husks were added to the game, which are like tundra and desert variants of skeletons and zombies respectively. The only real difference aside from the look is that strays can inflict you with slowness, and husks can inflict you with hunger and can't burn in the sunlight. And yeah, that's about it for the namesake stuff. Other things added were nether wart blocks, red nether bricks, and bone blocks. Seriously, when I said this update was small, I meant it. The only real meaningful change was the fact that dispensers could now automatically equip shields, so that's cool. This was one of the fastest turnaround for a major update in Minecraft, if not the fastest, so there's not too many changes or additions. And so at this point, I've kind of realized that this video is stretching longer than I intended it to be. Sort of a theme for this channel. So I'm gonna end it right here and make this a two-parter. I've already got the next part almost finished and written, So it'll just be a matter of hopefully getting the computer to do what I want. But yeah, with that in mind, I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe you learned something, a thing or two about Minecraft. We didn't even get to the more like recent stuff. This is all Minecraft stuff that feels old at this point. So there's still a lot to go and a lot we can learn in the next video that'll be coming out hopefully soon, but don't cross your fingers. See you later. Bye.